because that is an incredible piece of calculation from Nodirbek, and he's gotten up off the board. You can tell there was so much nervous energy. He sat there for so long, but you can tell now it's like a weight has been lifted.
Got here. So,
okay.
1 e4, it was the king's pawn opening. We see the Caro-Kann. The big difference between Caro-Kann and the French is always that the black bishop finds itself out on the light squares. It's not as dead, but that means it also exposes itself to threats and dangers. White gets the time to strike in the center. Also, always watch out for a b7 pawn coming under attack. The knight comes out, the other bishop gets developed. White reinforces the defense on that knight. You're heading to g3 to start targeting the bishop that's been developed. Knight e7, and we see the first bishop being pushed back, more space being gained. You go back to c7. One of the breaks that I was talking about that black must keep in mind is, well, I call it the French break. In this position, it will be the Caro break with f6 at some point to open up the dark square bishop. Knight g3, and now bishop to g6. So in this position, knight d7, short castle, giving away this bishop would be something that I have seen a few games in, but instead, Nodirbek decides to keep the bishop on the board, and it does get given a question mark, and I think it's exactly because of what Jorden responded with. He takes advantage of the moment to seize it, to push, go all alpha 0 in the position with h4. Now the idea is clear, you want to go h5 and the bishop is not a happy piece, doesn't have too many squares to go to. If you go short castle now, h5, h6, full out alpha 0 and you're a happy camper, right? And here Nodirbek, sorry, go on.
I was going to say that if you're someone who doesn't play the Caro-Kann, it feels like it should be thematic, because if white has played the knight to e2 and then played the knight to g3 in order to possibly capture the bishop on f5, well, that's 3 moves made with the knight. So moving the bishop a step back, while it might not be the top move by any stretch of the imagination, like, I feel like any player would be forgiven for thinking that's just a perfectly sensible move. So it's interesting that this runs into stuff like h4.
This has to be some prep by Nodirbek. He's very aware that bishop f5 to bishop g6 is not the most played move in the position, but he's gone for it and he's immediately responded to harry the h-pawn moving forward with h6 himself. I want to point out a few things in this position. You want to stop the idea of h5. Now you can do it in 2 ways. You could go h6 or h5 yourself. The drawback of putting the pawn on h5 is that you give up a really key square for the white bishop to develop to. Bishop g5, causing a little bit of a disharmony in black's pieces. It's not so easy how you're handling the development. You can't go short castle, h5 is under fire, bishop e2 is going to triple down on that pawn. This doesn't feel right. But what Nodirbek has played as well, he's got his ideas, right? He definitely does, because of the speed with which he's playing. But it's not so clear to me, John. check on the board. So white might need to go on the defense. The other point is that Nodirbek has actually cleared the path for the c pawn to start moving
like
off the
this.
board. So for example, rook f4 check can perhaps be met by c4. Imagine a world where in this position, black's king starts assisting the pawn to become a queen. That's truly a marriage between a king and a queen.
Yeah, I think that might even be the easiest path to victory. Because instead of constantly being worried about how my rook and queen are connected, what pins exist where, and how, I'd love to be able to block a check with the pawn and just move it closer to a promotion square. It's allowing, instead of a queen and a rook versus a queen and a rook, I'm using my extra pieces on the board, I'm using my pawns as weapons. And that's the advantage that Nodirbek has now. So I really like this idea, and I like the idea of blocking the next check with c4, with my plan being king b3, c3, king b2, c2.
Yeah. It's sort of like king is the head of the house, and then you've got this pawn, which is like your daughter, and then you encourage her and assist her to become a queen and grow into.
She's all grown up.
Powerful.
Exactly.
But for now, no check was given. The rook comes back to d2, and this is the position on the board. I think it's just been so instructive to watch the piece play by Nodirbek, right? Hiding his king behind the pawns, using the queen and the rook to get away from the checks, and as it continues in a gutsy way to march forward on the board, it's been a true army power play.
It's been very, very instructive because there are, how do I put it? There may well be more precise, better engine moves that very specifically get you an extra 0.5 or something like that.
Ooh.
But wow,
You got a result,
a
John.
handshake. I think that's a result. That was a resignation. But instead of going for endlessly calculated, super sharp computer lines with endless checks, it's like, let me show you in principle, the idea to demonstrate here. I'm moving my king to one side. I'm going to